This is A to Z with Mark Zinno, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, where today I tell you, how do you like us now? Welcome in. We are live here on this Monday. Appreciate you guys starting your Monday with us. Hope you've had a wonderful weekend. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On ATL. Of course, I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. We've got a lot to get to. A recap of the Braves looking forward after their big playoff week series against the Astros and Mets. Of course, Falcons in action tonight. We'll talk a little bit about the preseason game and just how bad do pundits think the Falcons roster is. Unreal. We'll get to that all coming up today on the show. But first, we want to start with the Atlanta Braves and what a week it was. I don't think you could have planned it any better. I don't think you could have expected it to go any better than what it did. They take 3 or 4 from the Mets. They take 2 or 3 from the Astros, other than probably sweeping the Astros, which would have been fantastic. You know, this was prove it time for this team, and they proved it, right? Like that to me is what this past week was all about, and they showed everybody something. They showed everybody that they are not to be toyed with, that they take this team seriously. It doesn't matter whether they catch the Mets or not. This is a team that's going to be an incredibly tough out in October, and one that everybody should absolutely have on their radar as the standard bearer. Now, when all this is said and done, there's still a 4-game lead now between the Mets and the Braves. And you know, they still have some ground to make up. Obviously, they have 3 more left with them, but you're going to get into a stretch run here with the Braves and the Mets where they're both playing sort of weaker opponents. The Mets have a slightly easier schedule than the Braves do the rest of the way, but they're both pretty manageable, all things considered. The Braves start a series with the Pirates and the Mets. I think they move on to Colorado. Let me just double check real quick. And the point is that, you know, the team that plays the best, obviously, against this worst competition. I'm sorry, the Mets have a series with the Yankees for the next 2 days. Duh. The team that plays the best against this bad competition, which the Braves have been really good at this year, is the team that will obviously end up out on top. But it was just great to see the Braves put it all together for 7 games. Talked about winning 4 out of 7. They won 5 out of 7. You can't get upset at what we saw from the Braves over the course of the last week. You know, it really, really was good. Hats off to Charlie Morton for yesterday. Again, another solid start. Doesn't get a decision, but another solid start for him. He struck out 11 batters now. Struck out 23 batters over his last 13 2/3. It's his last 2 starts against the Mets and the Astros. So he's looked really, really good. There were some questions yesterday, and I think this is fair, about Brian Snitker's use of the bullpen. Again, he goes to Dylan Lee in the 8th, gives up 2 runs, and then another run given up in the 9th. It's like he just refuses to look at those high leverage situations sometimes for what they are, wants to get everybody work, wants to get guys into positions to be successful. And even though sometimes it calls for you to just go to Iglesias and go to Jansen, you know, it's not what he's going to do. He's just, you know, he looks at it differently. He's always had this sort of head-scratching way about the bullpen. I don't know if there's anything that's going to change that at any point in time, but it's just one of those things that is going to make you frustrated at times as a Braves fan. Speaking of frustrating, there was something else perplexing about yesterday. We'll discuss it in a minute. First, a word from our friends at BetOnline.net, the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your sports betting needs. Find your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews of every league and news of every league. Major League Baseball, obviously, NFL now raring up, getting ready to go. NBA right around the corner. NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they've got you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay. it's not often you see a player get booed in his home park during player intros. That's exactly what happened yesterday to Marcell Ozuna. He got booed during player intros. He got booed in his first at-bat. He got booed after he struck out in his first at-bat. He got booed for his second at-bat. And he got booed after he struck out in his second at-bat. Yeah. Well, Marcell Ozuna got the start yesterday, which was head-scratching in himself. Why? Why did Marcell Ozuna, after getting arrested over the weekend for a DUI or a Friday morning, he hit eighth, played left field. Was it Eddie Rosario had some hamstring soreness? There wasn't a lot of options for him. He didn't want to push Rosario, so it was Ozuna, and Snitker threw him in the lineup. Now, there's a couple of parts to this that I think are relevant. Snitker doesn't control the roster, and he cannot and should not have to play with 25 guys when everybody else is playing with 26. If the GM wants to dump him and ownership wants to dump him, that's their decision. Yes, obviously that manager is brought in on it, but at the end of the day, Snitker doesn't get to cut guys. That's not his job. So he's got to deal with what he's got to deal with. Like many managers, sometimes you just got this waste of space on your bench. I mean, the Yankees had it with Joey Gallo. The Braves have it with Marcell Ozuna. You just got a guy that's not hitting, that can't play, but you got to keep putting him out there. Why? Because he's on the roster and he's getting paid. And it's not smart for you to play with 25 guys when everybody else is playing with 26. Now, is it fair to say the Braves should have already cut Ozuna? Might be an argument for that. Been arrested twice in 15 months. First time on more serious charges. Second time now on a DUI. Yeah. I mean, at this point, for a guy who is making $65 million, got a 4-year deal, $65 million, he's not lived up to it in any size, way, shape, or form. Not even close. Now, whatever the Braves decide to do with Ozuna, I'm not really concerned with. I mean, at this point, Robbie Grossman is playing well enough. Obviously, Vaughn Grissom is adding extra offense into the lineup. I know he doesn't play the outfield, but, with the DH, you're getting just more production out of the lineup, and that's what Ozuna is there for, production on the lineup. He's certainly not there for his defense. That we all know. But that said, whether they cut him or not, I don't necessarily know that it matters. What bothers me about this for the Braves is Ozuna was the first guy that Liberty Media went out on a ledge with and gave something bigger than a 3-year deal and gave something bigger than, a $40 or $50 million range. That's what was surprising about it. If you remember, and I remember lamenting that, we never saw Liberty Media give out 4-year deals and beyond to free agents. They weren't doing it. That's why Josh Donaldson walked, right? He got an extra year from the Twins. I mean, in reality, that's why Freddie Freeman walked. He got an extra year from the Dodgers, but you get the point. Like, it's just not their way. So my fear is that as the Braves continue to be one of the superpowers in Major League Baseball, as every year you have to restock and reload that we talk about, is this organization now going to be gun shy to pull the trigger? If Dansby leaves in free agency and Carlos Correa is available, wherever it is, are we going to be afraid to go after that guy because he wants a 5 or 6 or 7 year deal worth this big money? As I said, I talked about this too. When you look at all of the contracts that Alex Anthopoulos has put together, the 5 big contracts, Acuna, Albies, Olsen, Riley, and now Harris. How many of those you think get to see through to completion? If you get 3 of those through to completion, that's a home run, man. That's a big-time home run. That's really, really hard to do. If you fast forward to 2028, how many of those contracts got to finish? If you get to 3 of them, that is impressive, because that really is something that tells you as a mark of you had a good deal. All right, coming up next, Falcons, Jets, tonight on Monday night. There is a noticeable absence from a couple of names here in training camp. I'll tell you who they are next. This is A to Z on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Search Locked On Sports Atlanta.